But as you think about setting yourself up for success from a talent perspective, from a people perspective, because as we all know, it's the people that make a business. When you're an investor, you always kind of invest in the founder first, right?
Right.
It's A team B idea wins over a B team A idea any day.
Yael Kaufmann, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How about yourself? It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful having you here. I'm so excited to talk about so many different topics, but we have to start with a really extraordinary one. How does a child go to school 7 days a week? How does that happen?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like the
Yeah.
the common
So
childhood that I know of.
yeah, it wasn't certainly my entire childhood, but it happened because my parents are immigrants from the former Soviet Union. They're from the country Georgia, and they grew up speaking all sorts of languages at home. And so for me, I grew up in a household that spoke Georgian, Russian, Hebrew, and English pretty much interchangeably. And for a couple years of elementary school, I went to regular school in the US. Monday through Friday. And then on Saturdays, I went to Russian school. And on Sundays, I went to Hebrew school. So there was a lot of fun, and education has been a big part of my life. Lifelong learner, passionate about education, and probably part of it is because I went to school for a couple years, 7 days a week.
That's just remarkable. So do you speak both Russian? I know you speak Hebrew as well, but you also speak Russian?
Yeah, I do. I do Russian and Georgian. Yep.
So English, Russian, Georgian, and Hebrew. That's just wonderful and definitely sets you up for a very interesting background. But Yael, other than that, you also went to Harvard Business School. You were an investor in VC, chief of staff in a Series A company, and now the co-founder and COO of Learnin. Before we even dive into your journey, which I can't wait to hear about, talk to me a little bit about what upskilling is. Set us up for the second half of the process. What is upskilling in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear the term upskilling get thrown around a lot, and so for me, what I'll share is what I mean, broadly speaking, is the fact that a lot of times when we talk about education, to some extent, we talk about where you went to school. If someone asked you about your health, you wouldn't say that I ran a marathon 13 years ago. So where you learn in school is really just sort of the beginning, right? It doesn't end or begin even really with a degree. It's an entire lifelong journey, and so upskilling is kind of the post-school learning that you do that's often on the job, often on your own. So for me, I had the flexibility and the ability to take 2 years off from the workforce to go get my MBA. But a lot of people don't. And it's really, really hard to find time to learn. Time is actually the biggest barrier to learning. But upskilling is, as we think about all of the things that have changed over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, of course, someone over the course of their career is going to learn more over the course of the actual career than in just that formal beginning education part. So upskilling is everything that goes into that lifelong learning piece. And that can apply to everything from the small snack bites that you learn from a one-off course to
Right.
longer form upskilling, as I like to talk about it, where it's, one-off courses are not going to do it for getting you the skills that you need to succeed in the digital future, especially when the half-life of skills is decreasing as the rate of technology advances faster than ever before. So just as you are doing things from investing to learning to working all at the same time, the future world of working and learning will all be kind of more and more intertwined as you talk about everything from upskilling to reskilling continuously over the course of your life.
I think that's just fascinating, and I can't wait to hear about how you actually help people and employees and employers resolve the problem of upskilling through learning. But before that, Yael, take me
Yeah.
all the way back to your journey, because it's not a conventional journey by any means. You are getting your MBA at Harvard, which I'm sure it's a phenomenal experience on its own. But walk me through a little bit your experiences and why go from MBA to investor to chief of staff to co-founder.
Yeah. Well, I'll start even before the MBA because we started even before with my 7 days a week of school. But so I grew up with education being a really important part of my life. And I taught and tutored for a decade in middle, high school, college to make money. And so education has always been a big part of my life. But as I sort of went into the professional world, started my career as an investor first in private equity and then later in venture, but had this idea for how I was going to apply all of my passion for numbers and math to the business world, and then found that actually a lot of what I enjoyed doing was solving really hard problems. And so found myself more drawn towards the life of an operator than that of an investor, but really, really, truly passionate about helping people build businesses across the entire kind of landscape. And spent my 2 years at HBS, very much at Harvard Business School, very much focused on how I could help mission driven entrepreneurs and businesses thrive. And so for me, it's really important to be knowing that I'm spending my time working on something that's worthwhile, that's solving big problems. And so a lot of that is sort of like mission driven in my mind, but it can range from everything from food to education to cybersecurity and all of the ways that we talk about ways that we can solve big problems in society. For me, I was privileged enough to be able to take the time to go to business school, but a lot of people don't. And I encourage people to explore what it is that they're passionate about and make space in their own professional journeys to say, hey, I have a lot of people doing a lot of really cool things in my life. What is it that I want to do? What is it that I am personally passionate about? And where do I want to spend my time? Because time is your most valuable resource, whether you're an entrepreneur or an individual trying to make ends meet and do everything across the entire kind of lifelong journey of learning and working. Being really, really thoughtful about that is important. And so for me, I've been fortunate enough to have those in my life who I've considered formal and informal mentors, advisors who've been thought partners for me as I've thought about what journey I wanted to go on next. And so that's helped me navigate the roads between early and late stage investing and operating. I've done it all, and I feel very fortunate to now feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing as an entrepreneur.
I think that's when we talk about Maslow's pyramid, which is something that I've been thinking ever since, in my sixth grade Hebrew class, my teacher showed us the pyramid of Maslow and talking about this, the enlightenment piece at the end where everybody aspires to. And I think that what you're talking about here is something that really correlates to that, this idea that, you can have your security, you can have your job, you can have your daily life, but really when we're aspiring to have that personal fulfillment, it's about also exploring our real passions and thinking, okay, how can we integrate them into our work, into our daily life? But talk to me a little bit about,
Absolutely.
this. Talk to me a little bit about this journey with learning, and how do you even think about before that? Even today, you said something very interesting about the half life of our knowledge and our skills. That the half life is going down. What's happening today in the 21st century, and specifically, starting in 2020? Why is the half life of our skills going down?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things in there, and I'd even parse out, knowledge from skills, because
Mm.
as you think about it, knowledge, something that you might learn in a textbook or in an article or something like that, that's great. But how do you apply it to your life, to your work? And being able to actually continuously develop new skills, learn new things, learning to learn is a skill in and of itself. And so being able to do that in a more and dynamic way, more regularly, is something that will set people up to succeed in life. Because when you think about the rapid pace of technology changing, right, there's more data than ever before. My undergrad I was interviewed the other day I was a math and finance major. They now have a data science degree. And that's something that's happened in the last, 10 years, right? And
Unbelievable.
data science, when people talk about it, we're just scratching the surface of being able to understand what we're talking about. When people say data, they can mean everything from, you might need someone who has a PhD in data science, or you might just need to teach someone who's a business analyst and is a whiz in Excel, Python, SQL, or R. Those are very, very different skill sets, very different profiles of candidates, and you can learn different things in different amounts of time. Costs different amount in terms of dollars and time. And so being able to parse out all those different things for both a business and an individual, what is it that I'm trying to solve for? What is it that I actually need to do? And then be able to translate that into, okay, so I need the skill set of data science, data engineering, data analytics, right? Data literacy. I need to just teach people, what does that mean? Data, like how do we think about all these different moving pieces in a way that sets us up for success as a business? And individuals, they can see kind of like, these are the areas that are adjacent to my skill set, right? If you are a software engineer that is focused more on legacy languages and want to upskill into more, modern frameworks, you can do that in a way that is, sets you up for success and sets your business up for success. And so as we think about all the different things that are changing, right? The ability to teach yourself those new skills and to be able to acquire that knowledge on a regular basis and then apply it to what you're doing is going to be increasingly more important, particularly as that, that rapid pace of change continues to increase.
100%. So how, starting with the pain and the problem today, because I'm convinced. I mean, the world is changing rapidly. The things that I thought that are crucial in 2017, and they are so different in 2020. And already, when I'm thinking about the startup that I'll hopefully create, in 8-9 months, everybody's asking me, Michael, what are you going to be? What's your startup going to be? And I'm like, I have no idea, because the world is going to change threefold by the time that I'm going to have to think of an idea. So so given that, why is it so difficult for people to do that now? Why do we need something like LearnIn from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that there's a couple different slices of the market that have different pain points. And so a lot of where we spend our time is in the late stage enterprise sector of the market. And so startups
Right.
that are constantly hiring and constantly need to acquire these new skills and apply them day zero, right? Day -1. Those are very kind of different types of situations. But late stage companies, large companies that also have these really entrenched needs, but aren't necessarily able to perhaps, hire the top talent, the top of their class from Stanford or wherever, they still have a need to fill those business objectives. And they have internal domain expertise of individuals who have worked in their companies for 10, 20, 30 years and have the ability to learn. And it's just about putting those pieces together. And so to some extent, it's about helping companies understand, hey, firing and hiring people is expensive and it's inefficient. And the zero-sum war for talent is not going to be sustainable. And so as companies are coming out of this pandemic, trying to think about how they can hit the ground running, yes, there's a lot of stemming the bleeding right now with a lot of the business world being turned on its head. And there are all these kind of massive problems. But as you think about setting yourself up for success from a talent perspective, from a people perspective, because as we all know, it's the people that make a business. When you're an investor, you always kind of invest in the founder first, right? It's A team B idea wins over a B team A idea any day. And so being able to do those things that will be able to set you up for success in the long run is something that is very, very important for companies of all stages to be able to do. And so for late stage companies, to some extent, it's really just about equipping them with the tools that they need. And so that's why we've built features over, hundreds of discovery calls and with all sorts of folks from L&D, learning and development teams, to various teams within HR and people organizations, being able to say, hey, like, what are your biggest pain points and how do we solve them? Well, you can actually create a business case for almost inevitably upskilling someone in your organization. Investing in your workforce is almost inevitably ROI positive, but especially in areas for some of these digital skills, right? When we talk about data, when we talk about, digital marketing, any number of these things. And so it's about helping people understand that this is a need that they can fill internally by being able to invest in these specific targeted groups of individuals to put them through these various upskilling programs that are outcomes oriented, built for the modern workforce, that are remote, online, very much focused on skills that are useful today, and then be able to apply those and see the benefit of that as a business, rather than needing to hire people externally all the time and not necessarily reap the benefits of a really great workforce.
So what I'm hearing is, and I think that, I even came with a misconception that I was thinking, well, if you're a startup and you need a skill, just hire for that skill, tap into, the pool of new graduates. But I think that what you're talking about here is that you have a range of these large late stage enterprises that are perhaps, quite a few years old, and they have quite a few number of employees, and the turnaround there is not that quick. And you have people that have worked there maybe for 10, 15 years on a certain skill, and they need to upskill to be more relevant. And to me, it now makes perfect sense. This company might not have that quick, turnaround and add that competitive edge to hire that next top talent. but they have this incredible pool of very dedicated people that are already working for them. And if they can devote resources through a program like Learnin, they can upskill them to fit their new digital needs of 2020. Is that about what you're saying here?
Absolutely.
I think.
Absolutely. And so there's all sorts of organizations like the AT&T Workforce 2020 initiative famously put $1 billion to work upskilling the organization.
Wow.
Verizon similarly has had these large budgets. And so when you think about it, AT&T and Verizon, they're putting $1 billion to work not out of the goodness of their heart, but because it's the right thing to do for their business, right? It's almost
Right.
inevitably ROI positive. And so offering education as a benefit is one thing that's become more and more kind of popular mainstream in these days. And to some extent, yes, that's absolutely an ROI there, right? Attracting and retaining top talent is fantastic. And that is definitely where a lot of the kind of dialogue has been. But you can even supercharge it that much more. When you think about all of the different organizations within HR works when you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees globally, there are inevitably going to be inefficiencies. And so when you can streamline those things and you can take spend that's already happening and make it more efficient, right? Tuition assistance is something that's been around since, for the last 40 years or so. And it's, in the US around the $5,250 mark. And that's because $5,000 went a lot farther in higher ed in the 80s, right? Versus today. And today we're in a world where a lot of, changes happen. And so it's not just universities, there's online certificates, boot camps, all these kind of new age types of upskilling programs. There's all sorts of different things you can do to dynamically upskill your workforce in a way that is highly, highly aligned to your business outcomes and objectives. And you can do it in a way using existing budget that is more efficient and effective.
I have to say that I had this phenomenal experience with a graduate class at Stanford. It was a product management course taught by Professor Edison. We formed a team. We were 5 working with Target on helping them think through some interesting use cases using deep learning for the retail. And one of the
Cool.
fascinating things about it was that I was the only Stanford student there. The rest were Google, Amazon, and we had Salesforce. These were workers that came in, and now it makes perfect sense. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, how can I be the only Stanford student here? And it makes perfect sense because they had a fantastic time. They took that learning back to the company. The company retained them. And one other thing that you said that was fascinating to me was this idea of learning as a benefit. Today, when we go to a company, we ask for what's our compensation, what's our dental, our healthcare, and our 401k. And now we're introducing this, what's our learning? Right? What is that? Learning as the benefit as another way of compensating, which I think is just phenomenal. That's so interesting.
Absolutely. By the way, we're hiring if you ever want to come work for us instead of doing your own thing. So you're doing a phenomenal job pitching.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about why you're so passionate about this. I mean, I'm getting excited because it makes sense to me, that you have this incredible workforce that we need to dynamically upskill all the time. But why leave such incredible positions that you've had, start a new company, and why do that? Because people say entrepreneurs are crazy. So why are you crazy?
I'm crazy for all sorts of reasons. I'm personally passionate about a lot of different things, solving big problems, as I mentioned. For me, a lot of what I've had guide my decisions at various points in time has been, essentially taking stock of where I'm at and where it is that I want to be and what it is that I'm getting out of my current role and what it is that I want out of my life and my career. And so one thing that I'm really passionate about is helping people find meaning in their careers, find the right paths for them. I'm the go-to person for a lot of people and trying to figure out what they should do with their life career-wise. And I'm also someone who has known that some of my most fulfilling roles and time has been, as a math tutor, as a Hebrew teacher. I loved teaching and tutoring. Never thought that I would do that professionally, and have a ton of respect for those who do. But it's one of those things that there are very few things that are as fulfilling as helping someone reach their potential or get closer to that, or help them learn something or find some sort of meaning or something like that. And so that's something that's always been really, really driving me from a personal perspective. I mentioned that education is a big part of my life. My mom was a math professor at the University of Tel Aviv for 13 years.
Oh.
She's got a PhD in math, mathematician. She's brilliant. As I think about education, the people who have instilled in me the value of education have been those that have never stopped learning. There are people who she still every once in a while will sign up for an edX course. And so
Amazing.
There's people where lifelong learning is just part of their innate being. And I feel very blessed to have that ingrained in me from a young age. And so as I think about the different moves that I've had in my career, I've had a lot of guiding forces, voices, but a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't know what's available to them. And a lot of people don't know, have a desire to learn, but don't know what would be valuable to them. And so the individual learning journey is something that I'm really, really passionate about. And then when you think about some of the parts of the traditional higher ed landscape, particularly in the US, there's a lot of kind of moving pieces that have not been so great for the industry. And there is a massive student debt crisis that is something that I also care deeply about and would love to solve in all sorts of ways. And so there's a lot of really smart people working on a lot of really tough problems in that space. For me, the slice of the market that I'm really focused on helping solve is the people who are working, the people who are hustling, the people who are employed by their employer and have a desire to upskill themselves, who want to learn, who want to advance their careers. Those are the people that I want to support on their lifelong journey. And there are people who the companies almost inevitably will want to invest in, because that talent is then, more loyal to your company. They will want to stay. They will feel more fulfilled. You will get that skill set as a company and not have to, onboard a new person and all these different things. And there is a way to kind of create all these, synergies by putting together these different pieces. And I just really, really love being able to solve problems and help people on their journeys. In terms of what that's meant for my personal kind of path making, at different points in time, I've had people kind of recommend different things. So my first move, for instance, I went from private equity to a portfolio company of the fund I was at. I had a couple folks who were mentors for me say, I think you'd be good at operating. I think it'd be good for you. You should give it a shot. And I, trusted their wisdom, and they were right. And so, at some point I went from thinking business school was going to be not a good use of my time or money to thinking, this is actually the perfect thing for me right now. And so I think keeping an open mind and having different people, share their life experiences and share their insights and wisdom has really helped me. When I was in venture, I was thinking, if I want to invest in Series A companies, I should probably go work at a Series A company. And so that's sort of what led me to move from that to a chief of staff role. And the chief of staff role was a phenomenal learning experience and a lot of opportunities to get my hands dirty in operations, partnerships, the areas that I lead for Learn In now. But then beyond that, kind of understand what it's like to see the landscape from the back seat of what a CEO does and see these are all the different moving pieces that happen. This is how decisions are made in real time. And these are the ways that you actually have to kind of make tough decisions, which is really at the end of the day what operating is about, right? You work with imperfect information to make decisions to the best of your ability and surround yourselves with people who are ideally smarter than you and amazing humans, where you can kind of have a group of people who are from diverse backgrounds, because that will almost inevitably make your decision that much more well-informed, and be able to do so in a way that, drives everyone together in a mission that is hopefully making the world a better place.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Toda rabba. Thank you so much. This was just incredible.
Of course.
The most difficult and important question: 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
I would have to say tenacious is one of them. Passionate is probably another. And the last is, let's just go with positive. So I'm optimistic.
I love that. Yael, thank you very much. Best of luck with learning. Continue making a really positive impact. This is just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate it.